Hi there, we're going to talk today about plating on the Passap. But just as a little background, what plating is two threads, two yarns used at the same time, and one always follows the other one, so it'll show up on the purl side. This is a device that Kathy printed on the 3D printer. She's going to share the Thingiverse link if anybody wants to print them. If also she's making them. And we're going to start with the setup and what you need to do before you glue it down to your machine. You can use regular twin stick, but Kathy has gotten some really cool clear stuff. She didn't have this at the time I mounted mine, so mine's been mounted with Velcro. And take it away, Kathy.
Okay, so this is the block that you need, and as you can see, it has burrs in the front, and then this is the printed eyelet, which is what you're going to thread your yarn through. There's two holes on the top. One is you're going to mark these red and black. But first, I think let's show you how we figured out how to place the block on your back lock. So, okay. So, Ronnie, I think you.
Okay. So what I did is I put the eyelet in for the feeder.
So you're going to open this manually.
Yeah.
So I can see it when it's going. And you're going to, the two, it's just like your regular color change eyelets. You're going to put these two, what would you call those? Ridges into your eyelet feeder here. And you're going to probably wind up having to push it in a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to just, okay, now I have it stuck here.
Well, okay. The Velcro is on it.
Yeah. So, Ronnie, what did you do?
You have to determine. First off, let's see what happens with the eyelet and move the carriage back and forth. Every time you return. No. This part is sliding. The actual jaws, if you notice, is sliding when you go back and forth. See how it's moving? And that's what repositions your yarn. So you have to make sure that you put the block on the carriage in such a manner that it works.
That it's going to line up with the teeth in the block. And you can actually manually turn this with your hand. And so we want to line up the black dot with the black dot on the
and you more than likely, if you're starting off new, you will not have the black dots. You'll be creating them, but you have to know where to position this. And you can, hang on, I'm going to zoom in a bit. I always go the wrong way. You see how the teeth have to match? They have to match. And so, and also if you look closely, you'll see where I marked my lock as to where they needed to go. Okay, and so you would hold it there. And, and then just go back and forth and make sure that it's not falling off the edge or this is not rotating. So once you get a spot that you like, you're good. So.
And you can tape it to the back one. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Make sure that it's, so when we move the carriages, you can see your red dots lining up with the red dot. And then when we come back, the black is pretty much lining up with the black.
And you have to create those dots.
Yes. And you can also, when we get into it further, you can also take your eyelet out and turn it around so you switch your colors, and then it would be just the opposite, but the dots are always going to line up. Okay, so that's part number one.
This is an example of plating. This is a 3x3 rib. Down here is stockinette. You can see how the back is mostly orange. And this reverses it. And then up here we have just the reverse. And we didn't change any yarns. All we did was take out the eyelet and put the black on the red and the red on the black. Okay, take it away. Now I gotta take it.
All right, so now we're going to take this out again because we need to feed the yarn into the eyelet. So be careful when you do this and sort of try to get your hand underneath there and then just take it out and break it.
Oh no, I guess we're done for today.
I guess we're done for the day, and I will be printing a new one.
Better you than me. End of story. Stop recording. Okay, today we're going to be working on plating on the Passap.
And this is the black.
Yep.
That goes on top of your back lock. And this is the eyelet that's going to go into your jaws. So you're going to put it, it's going to go in.
Maybe.
I believe just like that. Okay. Do we want to mark this first?
First let's get the black in position.
Okay.
We're going to test as far as where the block needs to sit. And then mark the spot. So now move the block back and forth. Put that on it.
Gently.
Looks like it can move over a skosh.
Like a skosh.
Yeah, I think even another little skosh. Doesn't seem to be changing. Okay, make it too skosh. Okay, now turn it. Okay, that looks pretty even.
Yeah, and the object is, all right, so now we're going to take a little pen and we're going to mark the placement. Are these erasable?
No, it's a Sharpie, just go.
Okay, and I'm going to mark.
And
One little
do front and back as well. Get it in the right spot. The front.
No.
There's no point in getting it correct right to left if it's too far back or too far forward. But you can see how it fits into the eyelet grooves fit into the block.
Okay, so the next thing we also want to do is when you want to make sure there's two little holes in the eyelet. So when we put that in, do you want this to be there? That's why it was black and red.
Okay, so one hole gets lined up with
the red.
Well, you have to make your own red. This one happens to already be on there.
Mark it.
And then the other one's going to be a black.
And you can just mark it.
Yeah. I would say take the eyelet out now.
Okay, and when you're taking the eyelet out, they are printed with PETG filament, which is the stronger of the filaments, but be very careful when you take it out because I did manage to break one. And there it is. I got it out. So just make sure that you grab it snugly before you take it out because there is a chance that it could probably break.
The length of it, it's got a lot of torque on it. Okay.
All right. So the next thing we're going to do is you're going to put a clear, this is
Forward.
This is like you can't see it real well on the video, but there's a piece of clear double-sided craft tape on here, which I got on Amazon. And I will put a link at the end of the video as to what it is. But we're going to pull up this piece. There's a clear piece on here, and it is removable. So if you wanted to take it off, you could. And we're just simply going to line up our little squares that we made and set the block on the back lock. And there it is. And you can see it's nice and secure. I don't think it's going anywhere.
2 holes. Hard to see. Yeah, there you go. 2 holes in the eyelet. And one color goes in one, the other one goes in the other one.
Now, to thread that eyelet, you can use a dental, a blue dental flosser with the, I think Ronnie has one, doesn't she? Okay, we are back, and we ran into a little issue which we want to tell you about. We had a thicker yarn for the white, and we changed it to 224, and that is, we sort of felt when the thicker yarn was in the eyelet that we felt was very minute, but there could have been a little snag on the inside of the eyelet. So we changed to the 224 yarn, and as we started knitting that, it pretty much alleviated the loops on the ends that we were getting. So just a note that you can try to remember if that starts happening to you. You probably do want to have the both same white yarns in your eyelet.
Traditionally, that's not how it's done on a single bed, but it's, everything is a work through and see what happens. Because I think you could do a little bit thicker yarn if it were slippery. Or that one was a little bit on the fluffier side.
And the other thing that we did was we took some LPS silicone food grade lubricant and we sprayed it in the center of the eyelet, which I think also helped quite a bit. So that's another thing you might want to do.
After use, the eyelet's going to develop its own patina and be smooth.
Yes. And then in the meantime, we set up a 3x3 rib pattern, and we are going to now try to knit that. So here we go.
Oh, we got to put that on Annie. All the time I do that.
Yeah, I have a nice big loop here now, so
that's okay.
Just snip back.
Sure.
See what happens. I feel it now. Yep. Okay. And I think we got this.
You can always put 4 weights on it. Yeah.
Putting some weights on.
Yeah, and you know what? Feeling the fabric, I think you could probably be safe going up to you're all the way up.
Oh, okay. I'm on 8, yeah.
Yeah, I can't go any more.
You got the back on 7 and the front on 8. Should we tighten it a little bit?
No, I'd go the other way. Maybe put it back on 8.
It's knitting much better than the loops. There's no loops coming out now. So. Oh, I think I'll take this up too. And another 10 rows.
Okay. Flip your eyelet around.
And what?
Flip your eyelet around. Okay.
Okay.
You can just turn it, pull the jaws forward, and then turn it. So now you're red and red and black and black.
Okay. And then we'll do another 20 rows or so and see what happens. I got a loop. Okay, that's about 30 rows on that.
Pretty confident. Okay,
So,
so I got that done. I can see it's looking pretty good.
yep.
All right. Let's pause
Okay,
it.
we're back.
Okay. We set a different setup, and we've got 5 stitches on the front bed and 1 stitch on the back bed. We're going to rack. We're going to knit 2 rows.
And
it's matching. That's okay.
yeah, the purple.
We're
Yeah.
always going to. Knit 2 rows. You're good. Oh, looks
we
like you
drop?
got a. It
We
looks
just
like
got a loop.
No, something's not right there. I think you just didn't transfer one thing.
Should I transfer?
You see, those are too close together. You can transfer it now.
So we're putting
This one?
this one here.
No. 2, 4, 5. This one stays. That one goes.
This one goes to the front.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like there's maybe your needle. You might have transferred, but the needle was in between.
Okay. Well, we're gonna get what we get.
Yeah. Okay. Then you want to see where you're at with the. Oh.
Yeah. Or no. Clearly be doing a lot. Okay. So and this one's wrong too. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna transfer this one to the
Yeah.
front.
I think what you did is you did transfer perfectly. You just didn't put your needles down in the back bed. So I would just knock that off, Kathy. It's not going to go anywhere. It's just the loop. There you go.
Alrighty.
Put the double eye transfer tool back where it belongs.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't look like it knit it right. But let's just go with it. Might be a little dicey. Okay, we knit 2 rows. In this case, we started with racking handle up, and it was racked all the way to the left. So we're going to make a full rotation to the right, knit 2 rows. No, you're not fighting the leg, yeah. It looked like the leg was fighting. And knit 2 rows.
Yeah, and it's not on the. It dropped stitches. It should be.
Don't fret. Don't fret. You know, maybe crank the back tension down 1 number. Okay, let's see what happens when we knit 2 rows. It's good, right? It's not doing what it's supposed to do. It's kind of like here. I'm going to take that apart. Hello, Carol. Hi. I'm going to when we talk, well, we already cranked a few times. But that's okay.
Oh, this stitch. The white is off again.
Oh, don't fret about those. Yeah, I think you need some weight, Kathy.
Some weight.
Weight, yeah, that's good.
Well, we've got the.
Yeah, you got no claw weights on.
Yeah. So how much weight are you talking?
Feels good to me. And this is a good way to cover a lot of area. Yeah.
You put that leg in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
You want it way up on the top?
Oh, it's, just, well, no, up underneath the bed, but it doesn't have to be right where the knitting is. Oh, I lost it.
Yeah, because I got these. All right. Okay.
Okay, so I I don't know what point we.
Okay, do we want to rack?
Well, did we rack?
I don't think we did.
Okay. One full turn, back up, knit 2 rows.
Yeah. Still not doing the white.
Okay, go back. Okay, I'm gonna rack here, but maybe let me see if I come up with something. Okay.
No, that's how I did it.
Yeah.
I dropped a stitch.
Yeah, don't put it. And this will be our last rack to the
Right.
right. Are we recording?
And then that time it did. It knit everything.
Okay, but we're not recording.
Yes, yes we are.
Oh, okay. My bad. Okay, so now we're at as far as we can go on the racking. So we're going to start racking back in the other way.
Maybe.
That's
Yeah,
weird.
that's weird.
How did it do that?
I don't know.
Come on. It does the first couple, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does the first 2 and then it's not doing the rest of them. So.
It's very consistent about that.
I don't know.
Well,
okay, well that's a wrapping poster.
yeah. Just let's go this.
Go one
Wait,
more.
one more. I didn't wrap that. Okay, go. Now let's try flipping the yarns over. Okay, go back. And I'm going to start racking back the other way. Now go turn the black to the red and the red to the black. Let's see if that makes a difference. I'm going that way. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Okay, so this will be the last. You want to try the checkerboard? Okay. So I would say you're going to have to put a number, either 5 or 6 on the back bed or 5 or 6 on the front bed. And you got to do a whole bunch more transferring.
Okay.
You want to
And
pause?
while we're setting this up, we're gonna pause again.
Yeah.
Where are we?
All right. So I can see where you transferred, and you have 6 needles in work and 6 needles out of work, and the opposing needles on the back bed. And that's what I was going to correct you with, is that you need to make sure that every needle that doesn't have a stitch is all the way down, because otherwise it's going to pop up sometimes, and you're going to have a stitch where you don't want one.
But I remembered.
Okay.
Better late than never.
Okay. So here, you're going to, no, you don't have to do anything. Pick up is fine. And you got black strippers in, because you have more than 3 stitches in a row. You're going to, if you really truly want a square, let's leave that where it is, because we're going to be changing that after so many rows. So because we only have 6 stitches, let's see what happens if we knit 6 rows. And then what we're going to do is we're going to flip our eyelet, because then that'll reverse the colors. And that's what's going to give you a checkerboard. So let's say 6 rows. change your eyelet, reverse your eyelet, knit 6 rows.
We got it.
Okay, change your eyelet again. And now the white worked just fine, huh?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Guess you have to put it on a timeout. Oops, we got a loop. I saw that one coming.
I saw that one coming.
Yeah, that's a big booger. We're getting too.
I'm getting too cocky.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know what that's 6. Okay, reverse your eyelet again. Slow and easy. Use it again. Now that you're slowing up,
It's doing better.
Yep.
All right, that's 6. Reverse it again. One
Sure.
more time.
Yeah. Okay. 5 and 6. Okay.
6.
So now we're gonna.
All right.
I'm not sure if we'll figure out how to break the yarn. I don't think we're gonna. Since it's all threaded, we might do something more. I'm just gonna break the yarn, tie a knot in it, and open the jaws. Use the tool. Fingers on top, tool on the bottom. Pop it up, bottom, and then just let it whoop, fly up in the air. Knock it off. Let's see what we got. Yeah.
I don't think I want my toes to get hurt.
No. Okay, I'll do knitting. Use your checkerboard.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
So I'm gonna guess.
So here's the checkerboard that we just did.
Oh, that looks very blue.
Yes, it does.
And that's
And there's the
reversible.
back. This was the
racking
pattern.
Flip it over. Let's see if it looks better on the other side.
No, that looks like crap.
That was where we were having the
That's
problem with
with
the
the
white.
white.
And you know what? I was wondering. Oh yeah, no, look up here though. Kind of like that looks once we flipped it. That's how this should have looked.
Wow.
So I'm gonna guess that since we turned the eyelet around, that if you found yourself having these floats, maybe you do a full 360 rotation of the eyelet in order to make it get on track. Okay, so there's our 3x3. The 3x3 in one way and 3x3 in another. We got that was before we put the weights on. It did like weights.
Yeah, because it was dropping those.
It was
stitches.
It was but the blower section looks nice.
Yeah, this section here looks really nice.
And then again, it's reversible.
And then this was just the regular
stockinette. It gives a nice tweedy look.
And then
stockinette.
Oh, and still a checkerboard effect.
Well, yeah.
But you could do a big checkerboard.
Yeah, and you could do it across the whole bed.
Wow. Well, there you have it. I mean, I think it works. The plating, it works really nice.
So you got to work on what yarn you get. You have a responsibility. It's just
Yeah,
That
I think
simple.
the 224 yarn and it likes the weights and slow and steady when
Yes.
sprays.
Yep.
Don't
No speed.
don't get cocky. Yes, don't be speedy. And there you have it. So I hope you all enjoyed this little demonstration, including all of our little faux pas.
Okay.
Oh, what am I doing now?
I just wanted to see how you told me this would come off, Kathy.
Yes, it will. It's removable. It's supposed to be removable.
Maybe not. Okay, wait. No, it ain't coming off.
I would get a tool under there.
Yeah, I think a little pry.
A little pry.
Yeah. Okay, we won't show them that part. Okay, stop the video.